Hey, everybody, it is your friend Kent C. Dodds here, and I'm joined by my friend Shawn Wang. Say hi,
Hey
Shawn.
everybody.
Thank you so much for joining me, Shawn. Shawn and I go back, what, a year or two?
Likewise.
Just actually, I don't even know how we started meeting. Must have been, I think it was just Twitter.
Yeah.
We just started chatting on Twitter and stuff. Um, but yeah, Shawn is an awesome individual. I love his energy and the just the positivity that he permeates throughout the entire community. Has some really awesome ideas around learning and around creating resources for people. Also does some really cool stuff in the React community specifically that I'd love to talk with him about. So I'm excited to have him. But before we get into all of this, Shawn, I want to let our listeners get to know you a little bit. So if you just want to take a little bit to say who you are, what you're interested in, not necessarily tech related, but can be. And yeah, we just want to get to know you a little bit.
Cool. Hey everyone. I'm my name is Shawn. I'm from Singapore, but I've been in the US for about 10-ish years. I'm actually a career changer myself. I used to work in finance as a trader and a hedge fund analyst.
Wow.
Uh, Burned out a little bit, but then realized I started building like internal tooling, and then realized that we're sort of short on engineering talent, and then decided to become an engineer.
Cool.
Uh, did that through a boot camp, which I've talked about elsewhere, and then started getting heavily into React in 2017. And that's where like there's out of the many things you can bet on in the JavaScript ecosystem, React has been a really good one.
Hmm.
It doesn't take a genius to pick React, but I think there's certain tricks you can do to do it well. I started doing my learn in public, which is kind of like a motto thing. Uh, Throughout my React journey, started speaking at React Valley last year. That was my first conference talk, and then eventually got a job at Netlify, where I am right now, uh, doing that. So like React developer outreach, improving the developer experience of React devs and all other JavaScript devs. And that's about it. In my sort of spare time, I help to moderate the React r/React.js subreddit.
Mm.
We just hit 100,000 subscribers 2 weeks ago. Um,
Congrats. That's cool.
Thank you. um, yeah, it's people 100,000 people I don't know, but we're all passionate about the same thing, which is very nice to
Mm.
discuss stuff. And we're both instructors on egghead.io. I think I just have the one course out, but I'm trying to do more.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I sing as one of my hobbies. If I was good enough, I would do that full time, but I don't. I'm not. So,
Well,
so
I don't know if I'll have to find a link to your Babbel
yes.
on YouTube. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So I have I sing the theme song for Babbel. Babbel has a theme song. Just FYI. And yeah, I'm a pretty vanilla guy when it comes to like hobbies. I think the description is basic. I'm pretty basic. I think I've just decided to own that. Like, just be comfortably basic in like your pop culture taste,
I
and
don't
you can't
think
go
that
wrong.
you're a I maybe I'm defining vanilla guy or basic guy differently from you, but I think you're a very interesting person and you do some really awesome things for the community. And so thank you for that. So cool. So I want to talk about a bunch of things with you. Probably the first thing that I think most people really like that you push a lot and people really resonate with
Yep.
is this idea of learn in public. And I feel like this has made a really positive impact on the community. Can you talk about like where did this idea come from? Um, I don't know what inspires you to learn in public. What benefits have you seen in your life by doing this learn in public thing?
Yeah, got it. So just to be clear, like I wasn't consciously doing this. It was the sum total of like when I looked back at what I'd done in React and like what had worked really well for me, and it seemed to work so well that it seemed like a career hack. I just and the occasion was I was going back to my boot camp to do like a sort of like a commencement speech type of thing, like just like advice to young ones, even though I'm not that old, but just yeah, I mean, so it was actually I just came up with it like on a random afternoon because I was writing my speech, and I didn't know what to title it, and I was looking for something short and punchy, and it just came to me to call it Learn in Public. I wrote that up and
Mm.
posted it on Twitter, and it just got an outstanding response. So, and basically, what it is that you have a choice when you're learning anything. You can choose to learn in private, or you can choose to learn in public. And a lot of people don't really even realize that's a choice. The default is private, right? The default is you get your egghead course. You do your Kenzie Dodds live workshop session whenever that's happening, right? And then you go home and that's it,
Oh yeah.
right, like, but like as an instructor, a lot of the people that you teach disappear for the rest of your, like, you never see them again, right? And that's
Mm.
so strange because you've just invested that time to learn. What what are you doing to like make the most out of it? I think a
Mhm.
lot of people, like, yeah, obviously they make projects and they try to apply their work, but a lot of people kind of learn in private, and that's fine, and that's the default, and a lot of people do really well that way. But one thing I tried to do is sort of like produce learning exhaust. It's kind of similar to Brad Frost's idea of creative exhaust. So like just like
Mm.
as a side effect, like kind of like React has side effects as part of rendering, like just like as an uncontrollable urge of like your process of learning something, you have to produce some output, and it could be a blog post, it could be a video, it could be a talk, it could be whatever, and we'll talk about that. But just like having some artifact of your learning instead of just a distant memory, that can solidify your learning so much more. It can now we get to the benefits. It can help. There are three main constituencies. So the first and most obvious is that you help other recent beginners as well, because you're the world's most recent expert in that particular thing you're learning. And you have a beginner's mind. So you have the one thing that experts do not have, which is you can talk to beginners because you were one yourself. And use like sort of like the uncomplicated words, or like just like know how to call out the things that are not obvious, because experts are just like dealing with that all day long. The second thing is you're helpful to your future self. That's the second constituency. It's just you, and that experience of like just randomly googling around and finding your own answer or blog posts is unmatched in coding.
That's great.
It's like, thanks, pass me, right? But just, yeah, like, so to that effect, I have a dev blog that I just keep with my notes, and it's just for me, and that's totally fine, and that's also learning in public. But really the most sort of leveraged thing which came, and that's a third constituency, is people more advanced than you. And I had no
Mm.
idea, I had no appreciation for that. I was just like doing my thing. And I could not see how it could be helpful to people who know more than me, to put out my notes. Like, obviously they know this. So first of all, it's a chance for them to see like what the public perception is, and test the messaging. It's a chance for them to correct you, and in the process correct people. So you give them a foil to say like, hey, you have this back and forth, and in the process like educate the general public. Um, and so like, and in the process, like, a lot of people ask like how to find mentors, and it's not like a job description that you sign up for, like, hey, if I buy you a coffee, will you mentor me for the rest of my life?
Mhm.
No, like, the way that I've got Dan Abramov as a mentor for me for React is I started writing about React, and he's obviously, hates it when people get stuff wrong, so he'll come into your um, and correct you, and you thank him for it, and you do that enough, he's mentoring you. Like, there's no formal, like,
Mhm.
business card that says mentor for Swix. It just
And you never would, like, reach out to Dan and say, "Hey, Dan, fix all of my problems." It just
no.
kind of happens organically.
Yeah, if obviously if he's interested, if it's an interesting problem, it might be a completely uninteresting problem. Then you should ignore it. But if it's an
Mm.
interesting problem, and if it's shared by many people, then yeah, I mean, his leverage is that he gets me as a foil to just like beat up and whatever. Like I don't have one thing I like to say is that you can learn so much on the internet for the low price of your ego. I don't know why
Mm,
that quote has resonated with people, and that's just because like if you have a small identity, Paul Graham of Y Combinator talks about like keeping your identity small, like with regards what you think what your opinions are. Just like don't like if you call yourself a React developer, you're incentivized to think React is the world, right? Like to think that.
mm,
Um, there's it will take over the world. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you keep your identity small, and you consistently question what you think and what you believe in, and you'll be hyper aware to like changes um, in in the facts based on other circumstances, or just like where you're just plain wrong. And so like and people when people find that you're receptive to criticism, they generally are nicer. And that's something I found when especially talking in Reddit, where everyone's pseudonymous, right? And it's really easy for shouting matches like you see in Hacker News to spiral out of
mm-hmm,
control. And that's just because people don't listen to each other, don't have that
mm,
basic like respect, but also like your identity is just tied up in that thing. And if people criticize that thing, they're
mm,
criticizing you. That's absolutely not true, right? Like that you should welcome criticism, because that's someone who's not in your bubble telling you something that they think is true. They could be flat out wrong, but whatever. Like you need to invite that conversation, or you'll never have it. Um,
mm,
Learning public, three audiences. It's awesome. That's essentially like the sum of like what I think has helped me the most. Um, Obviously, I'm also a big fan of yours, and I would recommend everyone watching this podcast to go watch your Kent's 0 to 60 talk, which is like the How to Be Kent Sea Dog's manual. Um, and and I mean, you're an inspiration, and so much so that Joel Hooks of Egghead compares me to you in terms of like, and he didn't know this, but like I was like trying to like model myself after like your early days, and and
aw,
it was a huge compliment when he compared me to you in terms of like the way that I learned in public. But your thing is
mm,
different. Your thing is learn, build, and teach. Definitely that's
mm,
those are in my sort of casting of it, or bastardization of it. It's a form. Those are also forms of learning in public, and in teaching. Obviously, is very
mhm,
effective.
yeah,
Especially when I've had to do workshops and talks. Like it's on me to do research and just like be right as far as like as far as possible, but then also just like stop and ship when you think you've done enough.
mhm.
So a lot of ideas tied up in there. I hope I hope that wasn't too much.
No, it was awesome. I am such a huge fan of this concept, and well, like you said, mine's actually concern. It's like my mechanism for learning is consume, build, and teach, and it's very similar to the idea of learning in public, where it's you solidify what you understand by trying to teach it because you have to do all of that research, like you said. But one thing that you have suggested that was something that never really occurred to me was to create the resource that you want to have exist for the thing that you're trying to learn. And I would always say, like write the blog post for the thing that you were learning last week that you wish existed when you were trying to learn it. But something that I've noticed you do is you make the resource today for the thing that you don't know yet, and you're still trying to learn that thing, which is and you open source it so that people
Yeah,
can contribute to that resource, and then so you create this place or like a mini community where people who do know the information that you're trying to learn can contribute that information, and as a side effect, you learn, and that's kind of like one of the main motivations is I want to learn this thing. But the reason people are motivated to teach you is because you've given them a platform or a place to reach more people than just you. I have lots of thoughts on this, but I wanted to ask you about that, and maybe you can tell us about your React TypeScript cheat sheet and your concurrent mode. Like, what was it? The
yeah.
fresh concurrent mode thing that you have, and some of these things that you've done. Can you tell us about
Um,
those?
yeah, that's exactly right. again, like none of this is conscious, but then like kind of looking back, you can see why these are some of the more popular things that I've done. Is the very act of learning in public, and putting out these resources. This is kind of like the 201 of learning in public. Learning in public 101 is just put stuff out there, learning exhaust, whatever it is, and it can be a blog post. But blog posts have limited lifespan, right? They're kind of sort of not very structured. And you see that a lot, and this is kind of my objection with things like awesome repos, like Source has like these awesome cheat sheets and whatever. And I took that and I was like, all right, what if there was some twist on that, where, because like a lot of awesome has bit rot, like things get less awesome and you never have a process for taking them out. So
Yeah, because you'd feel bad if like somebody took
you're no
your
longer awesome.
awesome, repo
Right.
out of that list.
So for things that are evolving quickly, I invented the fresh format. So like it's just the only rule is that it has to be fresh and it has to be chronologically sorted, because it's evolving quickly. That's what I started on March the 1st last year, because that was when React Suspense was announced. Concurrent React. So like, and you use as you go along, you sort of put in resources there and make that resource for other people, which like you're going to need as well. So like that's the resource I go to for all of my concurrent React talks. And anyone who does research on concurrent React will find my cheat sheet. Like it's a guarantee.
Yeah, I have. That's where, because it's like not documented anywhere
Yeah.
except in your
Yeah.
repo. It's a
Well,
really helpful
that's
resource.
actually kind of like the wishes of the React team, right? I'm pushing the limits as to what they will allow. And that's, yeah, seriously, they do not want this documented, because then people start, using it at work, right? I know,
Whoops.
but you and I live on the edge, and we're fine with that. They're just they care a lot about the messaging, and that's been a huge part of the success of React. But just saying, like I call these things friend
Yeah.
catchers, and that's from Patrick McKenzie, who is another sort of internet sort of personality advice guru kind of guy. And a friend catcher is a thing that you work on that just catches you friends. But it's helpful to you and helpful to everyone as well. And that's kind of like the very spirit of open source, which is like not code, but just knowledge. And building these resources which have leverage. So a blog post has a half life. Right? It just decays in value over time. But building these resources which are fresh and which have leverage in terms of like they have some curation and opinionated structure, and it just tackles this very specific thing which is missing from the world, is extremely valuable, and people will find you. Like and that's how you build your network. And I've provided value to Ryan Florence. I provided value even though I don't have any popular libraries of my own. But being able to build these resources for them, which they don't have time to keep up on, is a career hack as far as sort of getting your name out there and being considered an expert. Like I'm considered a React TypeScript expert, which is absurd. Like I don't know anything, but I mean, I do know stuff, and you get taught stuff because people find that you're wrong, right? And then or stuff is missing, and they get really worked up about it. It's I think it's called Cunningham's law. Like the best way to learn on the internet is just to be wrong about it, and someone will tell you, and not and I don't, right, and
Yeah.
you get the brunt of that. But I don't mean that to be in like the malicious way, like just like intentionally publish something wrong, and then be lazy. But like you have to have done the work and be authentically like, this is the best that I've done. I've done the work. This is the best I think about. Come at me, because I have a small ego, right? That's the best way to learn, because people will come and teach you. And I've been taught TypeScript for free by the TypeScript team, by people who've used TypeScript at Airbnb, like just and Uber, Palantir. Like it's just it's insane the reach you can do if you're just genuinely learning in public. So the two successful ones, really the two major efforts that I've had are the concurrent React cheat sheet as well as React TypeScript cheat sheet. That one seems to be at the connection, at the coincidence of two big trends, which is React's adoption, which is, by the way, still growing at about 100% a year, according to my guesstimations. So between 70 to 100% a year, which is insane. At the current size, and TypeScript, which is growing even faster because it's just an incremental upgrade from JavaScript, and now it's at 63% of npm users. So that's
That
So
is
it's
bonkers.
63% of NPM users who respond to surveys, right? So there's going to be some equivocation, like,
Yeah, right.
how many like, let's say there are 5 million JavaScript developers, 20,000, right? How representative is it really? But it's a
Right.
trend, right? It's definitely a trend. It's definitely something people are interested in. If you spot
Mhm.
some trends that are ongoing that isn't very well documented, you can be that resource. And that's something I want people to take away from this. Like, your thing to learn in public can be whatever you're interested in, because it's self-serving. Like, I don't do this as an act of altruism that I'm donating my time to people. Like, it's definitely me first. I want to learn. And this is the best way to learn, because I cannot help but to help other people. Like, that's just how this thing works. Um, so so uh, so yeah, like,
Mm.
if there are any trends that are going on, like, GraphQL, I've got nothing on that in that arena except for the Babel macro that we can talk about. But yeah, I mean, that's the spiel. That's the friend catcher build resources spiel.
Yeah, I love that concept of the friend catcher. I'll add a link to something that I found from Patrick about friend catchers. But yeah, I think that like this is the reason why I started podcasts, because I really wanted to talk to the Angular team. So I started Angular Air, and then I was able to just chat with them for an hour, and like that was cool. Like, can you call up the React team and just say, "Hey, can I chat with you for what?" No, like that's not something that they have time to do. But if you can give them a reason. That's more than just we're helping people out, because they could help people out all day long and get very little done. But if you can give them a reason to teach you, um, where you increase the impact of their
Mhm.
time, then you're in a really good position to learn a lot. And so whether that's podcasting, or if that's like writing the definitive guide to X, or whatever it is, you're going to allow or encourage people to be motivated to teach you the things that they know. And that's not to say that it's not also very valuable to dive into the source code and learn that way. It's certainly, and building things is really really useful. But finding a way to get the people who know be motivated to teach you the things that they know, is I think it's a fantastic approach. So thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Do you know that you had a podcast on YouTube? I hate calling things that are on YouTube podcasts, but it's like a video podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's JavaScript Air. Is that the one?
Well, I think you had one that was, I don't know. You've had a few. But your 1 hour session when Dan just joined the React team, and Sophie
Oh
walked
yeah,
you.
yeah.
That is the only documentation of React's event system that exists in the world. And it happened because you
Hmm.
were, brave enough to just ask, and it just happened, right? Like, but like, that's the only.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much you can learn if you just like provide that resource, and then share it to the world. I'm sure you don't even remember it, right? Like, it's because you've done.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember that. That's so I used to do this thing a lot more. It's called tech
Right.
chats. And I would just I did like two with Dan. I've done like a bunch where I'm like, hey, I want to learn about continuous delivery versus continuous deployment versus all these things. So I had like real professionals in the industry talk with me about this, because I said, we will talk, it will be recorded, and then we will share it on YouTube, and like people will watch it, and they love that. Like people just in fact, with Netlify, I just this last week posted a blog post about serverless functions, and you all at Netlify have been just fantastic resources for me in learning all about that. Just super super helpful. Now, and you probably are like that helpful for everybody, but I like to think that you're especially helpful for me because I'm providing resources that help the rest of the community. So you want to make sure that I get it right. So this idea that by creating the resource that you want to have exist, just motivates the people who want that resource to exist, to help you make it the best resource possible. And in the process, you just learn a ton.
Yeah, I want to throw a special shout out to anyone who can draw. If you can draw, please draw. Like, that is
Mm,
the hack, because people like, none. I can't draw, right? I have no visual skills to speak of. I don't think.
same.
Yeah, but like, the people that can draw really simple. charts, and it just makes things look so much more approachable, right? Like if you can
Yeah.
visualize something that is complex and it's code and it's like text heavy, and just like put some graphs or diagrams or funny pictures around it. That's Julia Evans does that for like sort of
Hmm.
commands. And there's one more, I forget, Lynn Clark, the cartoon, she's a cartoonist
Oh yeah.
first, all right, but obviously she does a whole bunch of stuff on Mozilla, but she, like you can get so much reach with just cartoons because people love that visual medium that simplifies things. um Sorry, that was a little bit of a digression, but
No, no, I'm so glad that you mentioned
yeah.
that because there are probably a lot of people listening in who can draw. That like we have this idea somehow in our heads that that software developers are not artistic, and I think that's just total baloney. But there are like you can take these talents, even the singing that you were talking about. Like you sang the Babel Hallelujah and Praise of Babel fan recording song on YouTube. It is so good, and it's just like that. That's not really something where we're learning something, but we're it's part of building this community. And if anybody's interested in or I think most people are interested in building the community and helping inspire and whatever the case may be. So we all have talents that include code, but also include these other different things. And if you can take a talent that you have and turn it into a teaching opportunity or community building opportunity, then
Totally,
I think
totally.
people should go for that.
Mark Douglas from Australia. He's your favorite Twitter
So,
guy. He does memes, and it's kind of drawing, right? But
uh
like it's just funny. It pokes a little bit of truth, right? Like there's always a grain of truth in something that's funny, uh, and it's hilarious. Like it's really great.
hmm,
It's definitely entertained me for no end.
yeah, totally. I like you said, he's my favorite Twitter guy. I just love following. If I could only follow one person on Twitter, it would be Mark. I should have him on the show.
You should have him on. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, it would be great. So is there anything like we're getting pretty close down to our time here, but is there anything in particular that you think people should really, um, I don't know, like um, really look into, or something that could that like a final message that you'd like to share with the people who are listening?
Yeah, well, I kind of spoiled the plot a little bit with the frame catcher thing, because I think I really want people to take that away. It's not about uh, yeah, I mean, like it's easy for people to start with blog posts, and you should definitely get started if you've never done anything in public. But the where you start to get real traction and is in building these resources for yourself, for the community, and for experts to teach you on, and sort of be that canvas, and build that resource, especially on emerging topics, which are definitely, I guarantee you, whatever you're interested in, there's not enough documentation on it. There never is, right? So I want people
Hmm.
to take away from that, and that is your learn in public sort of call to action. Um, I feel strongly that everyone's sort of learning is enhanced by that, but then also your career is enhanced by eventually, like, through no sort of moving action motive of your own, like becoming an authority on it just by having done it for a while. um, and then people want to
Hmm.
hire you for that. It's absurd. It just works. That's how I got to Netlify. I think that is an emerging field, in terms of developers who can also make the field more accessible, and just like
Hmm.
be like, so Scott Hanselman of Microsoft, he has this concept of dark developers. I don't know if you've heard of that. um,
Yeah, we had him on the show. Yeah, actually, I interviewed him just last week, so
oh, no
people
way.
will hear from him absolutely. But he didn't talk about this, so I want to hear about it.
So it's just the fact that 99% of developers kind of are dark. Like it's similar to like dark matter in the universe. Like you know they're there because their npm downloads are there, right? Like you can see that
Mhm.
like millions of people download React, but like where are they? Like,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true.
and it's just a fact. I come from Singapore. How many Singaporeans do you know, that are this active in web dev? There there aren't there are two that I know of, but um, there just aren't that many. Like when I went home to Singapore and I talked to people in the local tech scene, like, do you contribute to open source? Like a really basic, like, have you sent in a pull request to any like large projects that you use, right? Directly personally relevant, and all of them said no.
Mhm.
And it was like,
Mm.
it's just like, that's just not in part of the culture, and that's the norm. Like I bet you, like, if I think in the US maybe we're a little bit more open to that, right? um, to sort of the open source culture, but it's definitely not something that's shared worldwide, especially in
Mhm.
that you just kind of like vendor the code and then everything else you kind of just build from scratch. Uh,
Hmm.
I think people should just do more in public, and there's like no way in which we can overshoot on that goal.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so I love these things where you can just be flat out uncompromising, no nuance, just do more of it. Like it will be good for you. And there's not many things in the world you can say that about. So I love that kind
Yeah.
of authenticity.
Absolutely. And I think a really big piece or like a key element to that, if you want to be successful here, is, and you mentioned this, check your ego at the door. Just like, this, for the small price of your ego, you can learn a lot. And don't worry about being always right, and be willing to be corrected. And that's how we learn. Um, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me some of your time
Thank you.
while you're traveling and doing all the fun stuff you do for Netlify. If folks who are listening don't know you already, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Right. I'm only active on Twitter. It's the only developer network of significance. So twitter.com/Swyx, SWYX, 4 letters. And then for those who don't want to be on Twitter, I respect that too. I'm on Reddit at Swyx as well. And my email is at Swyx at Netlify. I'm got no qualms about giving out emails. I think that most people should follow up with others, because like any question you have, um, I'll be more than happy to answer. I've forked the AMA thing as well, and trying to do what you do as an AMA. I don't have as much volume though, so question.
You get there. It takes a long time, but eventually you're like, oh snap! I've got
I
500
mean,
questions on
I
here.
listen to you every day for 3 minutes. It's insane. It's
Yeah, that one's fun.
yeah.
Hey, cool. Thank you so much again, and yeah, we'll look forward to getting this out to the world. And thanks everybody for listening. I hope you take the opportunity to make a friend catcher or whatever it is that you want to do to continue your learning. That's one of the coolest parts of the software industry. So, thanks everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye.